In my first year of high school, I walked into the newspaper classroom every day and looked at myself, and a tiny mirror hung just beside the door. Above the mirror was a laminated strip of paper proclaiming in bold Arial font that the person responsible for objective news is you. I'm a senior at Brown and a journalist. I've worked for a few publications over the years, most notable among them the Boston Globe, the Dallas Morning News, Teen Vogue, and Wired Magazine. Now, all of this started when I was 14 and I took my first ever journalism class. Right away, I fell in love with the field's relentless pursuit of truth and encouragement of intrepidity, quality that's likely to get you into trouble in just about any other industry. But let's get back to that mirror. One of the first lessons a budding journalist learns is that objectivity is essential to good faith reporting. Whether it's taught in a high school newspaper class, as was in my case, or on the job at a news internship, the notion of accurately presenting all sides of a story free from bias has been drilled into reporters as the most essential goal of journalism. But what does it mean to be objective? And can a person ever truly be? The Oxford English Dictionary defines objective as free from personal or emotional bias. Journalists believe that objectivity fuels trust. They believe that objectivity is fairness, but as a collective, they can't quite decide on what objectivity concretely means, apart from the obvious avoidance of editorializing, which means directly inserting your opinion into a piece. And when journalists themselves struggle to define the principal touchstone of their trade, it's probably a good time to start workshopping some alternatives. While journalists can avoid overt opinion, the process of gathering information in itself is inherently subjective. Failing to be objective does not require explicit editorializing. It isn't just a reporter gazing out at a field of flowers and writing that what they see is beautiful. The very act of choosing what's newsworthy reflects values and priorities and has historically been criticized for reinforcing dominant hegemony and omitting marginalized experiences. The failure of objectivity lies in the implicit inner workings of bias that exclude certain voices or details to amplify others. Now, if pure objectivity is impossible, then journalism has some reckoning to do. But admitting that we've been wrong about objectivity all along is a huge risk. And I'm here today to take it. As America's political landscape shifts, so too does the media. And journalism as an industry now finds itself at a critical juncture. Will media giants admit that objectivity is a myth? Can we build a framework for accuracy that is grounded in impartiality and fairness instead? See, objectivity is an ideal, but impartiality and fairness, these are practices we can apply. Journalists don't just report the facts. We interpret events, recognize significance, and make choices every day. What quotes to include, what angles to take. Journalism is an act of filtering reality through a lens. And that lens, whether we like it or not, is unavoidably shaped by who we are. This is why reporters must commit to providing a holistic picture, no matter how challenging it may be. A few years ago, when a devastating earthquake hit the border between Turkey and Syria, I felt compelled to report on how it impacted our Brown community. I reached out to faculty, staff, and graduate students with ties to the region. I collected their stories and had more than enough sources to meet my required minimum. But something didn't sit right with me. I hadn't spoken to any undergraduates, and I knew that without their voices, the story would be incomplete. So I kept searching, and after some persistence, I connected with a student whose family home had been damaged. The panic he felt trying to contact loved ones and scrolling through images online of people being pulled from rubble added something essential to the story. a testimony to the emotional wreckage and broad-reaching impact of a large-scale disaster. Now, that story wasn't just about reporting the facts. It was about amplifying the right voices. Journalism isn't about checking boxes. It's about reflecting reality accurately. But even the best reporting means little if readers don't trust it. As a journalist in Texas last summer, I spent much of my time covering North Texas Native American communities. Many of the people I spoke with approached me with suspicion before learning of my own Native American background. And once they had determined that I was like them, I had earned their trust. Many of my sources told me frankly they don't talk to white reporters. The media, they said, has never cared about getting their experiences right. This brings us to the real challenge: trust, or rather, the decline of it. Gallup's annual Trust in Media poll shows a steady erosion of faith in journalism. In 2023, that trust hit an all-time low. 31% of Americans said they trusted the news. Now, this isn't surprising. As much as we hate to admit it, journalists have made some pretty damning mistakes. And we've upheld objectivity as the gold standard despite it being unattainable. But here's the good news. We can choose to focus on fairness instead. Unlike objectivity, fairness is measurable, actionable, and necessary. To rebuild lost trust, we must acknowledge the truth. Objectivity is a fallacy, but fairness, that's something we can get right. Today, we live in an era of intense political polarization. Many of you have probably felt this firsthand. Maybe a news-related argument at the kitchen table rooted in more than just an ideological disagreement. Americans don't trust each other's opinions, and it's not hard to imagine the role of the media in creating this tension. 54% of Democrats say they trust the news, compared to just 12% of Republicans. Even worse, 71% of Americans say that interpersonal trust has declined over the past 20 years. Journalism, meant to bridge divides, sometimes deepens them. And legacy media institutions often fail to engage meaningfully with skeptical audiences, isolating themselves from large swaths of Americans and riding into the abyss. But skepticism isn't just about ideology. It's about journalism as a business. Newsrooms rely on subscriptions, ad revenue, and stock prices, creating a tension between truth-telling and turning a profit. Clickbait and sensationalism thrive in our attention economy, further eroding the credibility that is the bedrock of journalism. Major media outlets owned by billionaires, like the Washington Post under Jeff Bezos or the Wall Street Journal under Rupert Murdoch, only further fueled this distrust. Now, with all of this in mind, it's easy to see why people question the independence and integrity of what they read. Still, despite its flaws, journalism remains indispensable. Investigations like Nellie Bly's expose in psychiatric hospitals, the groundbreaking Watergate scandal, and the publication of the infamous Pentagon Papers prove its vitality. Journalism reinforces democracy, holds the powerful to account, and creates a public record. Yes, it is deeply imperfect, but giving up on it isn't an option. Instead, we must evolve. So, how do we move past the myth of objectivity? Fair journalism isn't just about what reporters do. It's about what readers demand. Here are some tangible principles to keep in mind whether you're someone reporting the news or reading it. First, pay close attention to who is shaping the story. Whose voices are included? Whose voices are missing? Strong reporting actively seeks out diverse perspectives. Because diversity isn't just about representation. It's about depth, nuance, and coming closer to the whole truth. Second, pay attention to how narratives are framed. Are motivations, identities, or events being subtly shaped by quiet assumptions? Reporters must interrogate their own biases, and readers should do the same. The way a story is told affects how it is understood. Third, expect radical transparency. Demand it. If you encounter work with bias, engage with it closely. Ask yourself, did the reporter reach out? Did they allow enough time for a response? A credible report should disclose these processes because methodology matters. A story's fairness isn't just in its final product, it's in how it was built. Finally, read with a critical lens. When reporters and readers both hold newsrooms accountable, the whole system gets better. If you encounter work with bias, connect with your publications, whether it be a specific reporter or a public editor whose job is to solicit reader feedback. Don't forget that part of these people's job descriptions is answering your questions. So push for disclosure, question editorial choices, and demand higher standards. Because journalism is, at its core, a conversation, not a one-way broadcast. Trust isn't just a media issue, it's a societal one. And rebuilding lost trust requires all parties to pitch in. Journalists must embrace impartiality and fairness, and readers must engage critically, asking tough questions and expecting tough answers. Without public investment, journalism becomes an echo chamber, unaccountable to those it serves. We all have a stake in this. The media holds power to account, but so do you. Now, as a reporter, I must disclaim that the only thing objective about this speech is that objectivity is a fallacy. Still, I am certain that my industry can uphold impartiality and fairness through practical steps that work to rebuild the symbiotic relationship between reporters and news consumers, which hopefully includes all of you. Now, let's take one last look into that mirror from before. While that tiny strip of paper might have missed the mark on objectivity, the personal commitment it implores from each and every one of us still rings true today. The person responsible for ensuring fair and impartial reporting is you. So let's abandon the fallacy of objectivity and embrace a higher calling: fairness, transparency, and accountability. That is the journalism that we deserve.